Now, we know that 2/3 of the work done by boards is actually done by committees, right? And we now face this dilemma of climate change. Do you, in your view, think that there should be separate committees dealing with this challenge of our time?
You'll see that I don't give direct answers because I always believe that each company and its circumstance is different. I have no doubt that for certain entities like ourselves, issues of climate change are exceptionally critical. But at the same time, when you're looking at committees, integration is very important. So let's just take, hypothetically, a company that's in the energy sector. Even if you create a climate-focused subcommittee, there are social issues that needs to be considered in the context of that. Where are those going to be addressed? There are issues associated with capital and resource allocation. If you then start to repurpose a committee like that, how does it influence some of those dialogues? So you have to map what are you trying to achieve, where is the integration, is this going to be an effective committee to ensure that it looks at things in an integrated manner? So far my experience is that the Social and Ethics Committee, with the right level of capability and skills and inquisitive mindset and ability to challenge and communicate, brings the integration that is required around issues of climate change, because you have to be responsive. You also at the same time need to integrate to make sure that substantially you're dealing with the issues in an integrated manner. So I advocate less committees where possible, but more robust, comprehensive terms of references, content, and discussions. And that then creates the integration that is required at the board level.
When I was bureau chief at the BBC, I had the privilege of being reminded all the time that the first African to run the British Broadcasting Corporation News on a Continental, which was quite good for my family and my wife, but not good for me, because I started feeling a bit tense about that. You've broken so many glass ceilings. You've been the first this, the first that. How does it feel when you're a woman and you're in a board that is full of men and you are the kind of the first woman? Are you there to fight the battles of every woman, including Busisiwe Mkhwebane, or are you there to fight the battles of, the company, as it were, or the organization?
I think first of all, let me say it's very lonely. And it can also be seductive. And why I say that is you ask yourselves how many Priscillas have been there? Why are we still dealing with the issues that I mentioned in the beginning of substance of women participation across organizations? Part of that is the loneliness and the fear. So if you're going to be a pioneer, which I'm not saying I am, I had other people who supported me, you have to have the courage to make a difference. Your ethical boundaries and values have to be clear around what are you willing to lose to advance the development of women. And I can tell you it's not easy. I've walked that journey in few corporates in South Africa. And we have all reasons why we are not the right species in certain roles. And that takes courage, commitment, and at times trade-offs to put it forward. So it's not Busim Mkhwebane, but there are many more capable women. It might be her as well, but it is important that we do that. Women need sponsors. They need people who can talk for them when they're not in the room. They need people who can give them honest feedback. We don't usually get that. I think I might have shared the story with you that I worked for a company that used to say to black people, oh, they have a potential. And initially I kept on saying, well, that's beautiful. You have a potential. Then every time we do a calibration of performance, they all have potential. 3 years later, they have a potential. Then I ask, what happened to that potential? When do you unleash it? You know? Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that these roles that we are blessed with are there for us to not necessarily talk, but to walk the talk, to make sure that we address the issues that are in the boardrooms as well as in the companies, the cultural issues that are creating funnels for women, and we pull as many women as possible, and also be willing to take risks on them. I'm in this role because so many people believed in me and took risks. I mean, when I went to the UK, and damn, I was so scared. I was going to run BP's flagship entity, but one person was the downstream CEO, believed in me. And that gives you the courage you need. So we just need to give people hope.
Wow. Now, that's a Milton Nkosi audience, unprompted. They started clapping. That's what we want to hear. Thank you very much. You touched on a very interesting thing. You told me once about the company who wanted you, they were headhunting you, and they said they want you because the women who are on their board, they only bring their handbags and lipsticks. Tell me about that.
How can I say that?
But what okay, fair enough. This is not hard talk, but but the implication there is that you had to stand firm on your values there and not be gullible, because you are also a woman, right? And there is, can you just join up the answer? There is also an issue about how to handle emotive issues. Women are seen as people who are emotional, they cry a lot, you know, and that kind of thing, right? There's that sort of stereotype, yeah? How should that be handled by these wonderful women on boards?
It's a difficult one coming from me. And your point on the first comment that I said in confidence to your friend, it goes back to seductiveness. You can be seduced, you're better than others. It's something you need to watch as a woman. What they said might have been true, because at times we don't prepare, we take something that we're not experienced for, we don't invest. But I find it's a phenomenon that happens to a number of board members, irrespective of their gender, etc. So that's something, but because there are so many few women, when we fail, the failure rate is extrapolated as if it's not a norm in other areas. So that's where some of the risks are. Hence, when you are in these boards, you really have to ensure that you are as effective and carrying the load much bigger than others, because you have to make a difference and not be an example in that scenario. But coming back to your point, I think what is more important for me all the time is that how do we make sure that as boards, we actually rely on each other. And I, for example, in NTSA, I've got the most amazing board. Their diversity of skill set is exceptional. And men and women that I really feel it's a privilege to lead and serve them. But I do know that if I have a difficult situation with Mr. X, then I'm going to leverage on Mr. Y, because I don't promote what Mr. X might be doing. But if I'm going to be effective in getting my message across through Mr. Y, why not?
That's brilliant. Thank you. Right. Before we open up for questions, I read up a little bit about your background. So I'm always interested in seeing, we are here to talk about the big cheese, Priscillah, right? But where does she come from? Who is she? Because quite often we feel inadequate when we're at places, when we look at our own backgrounds, right? And how we got to where we are. So it's always good to hear other people's stories, especially the people who are role models to us. Is how did they, what obstacles did they encounter? I see that, so this is two rolled in one again. I'm giving you two for the price of one. You grew up with brilliant parents who hired you to work in their office, and that gave you a bit of experience and confidence in yourself. And you've always been good in mathematics. That's why you support chiefs. You need to count a lot. I think the issue of role models, just as a separate entity, is crucial, isn't it? You do need to have mentorship alongside your hard work and vision. And while you are kind of battling it out there, how important is it to have that sort of role model that gives you hope when all seems like it's fallen apart?
If you have a role model like my dad, he thinks I walk on water, and all her kids, you're beautiful, you're what. At times I need that. Especially when I want to get into a difficult position and I know I will get reassurance from my dad. I'm going to pivot a bit and talk about sponsorship, role models, because I think at times we look at people, we idolize them. And we forget that we're human beings, we've got strengths and weaknesses. I always say that look for a portfolio of networks that will shape your life in a remarkable way. And based on that, those will be your role models, because no one individual could be a role model. But at the same time, you need a sponsor in every role you've been. And I have had that. You've heard me talk. Young was my grandmother, then my dad. I think some people will think that I was in China. But it really gave me a lot of excitement, resilience, and confidence that I could do anything in life. But at the same time, when I got out of that system at Ernst & Young, I had someone like Viv Oates, who was the partner at that stage, who was really sponsoring my career. Even when I went back to Ernst & Young with him, when I was at ESCOM early on, and I had promotions almost every second year or whatever in different roles, and it was fantastic, and I learned a lot. Hence, I could go back and give. It was a personal, deliberate decision I've made because it shaped my career. Willem Kok was my sponsor. He was the Group C, the late Willem Kok was the Group C CFO at that stage. And he introduced me to Wendy Lucas-Bull, who was on the board. Because at times it's unheard of that a CFO of a division is sponsored and actually mentored by a board member. As executive, we start thinking, what are they going to tell the board? But that was the most advantage I had, that I had someone who was experienced, who's actually charted the same challenges I was going through in experience at Anderson, Ben, and a number of other experiences. And we've been together with Wendy for multiple years, decades. She's seen me cry, going back to crying. We do cry as women. And I do take advantage of that tear because it does help me at times. The emotions are helpful. But what I'm trying to say is that we have to separate the two. Don't have a role model as such. I just find it is very challenging. You can have attributes of role models, but have a sponsor, have a mentor, have people that can be honest with you. But at the same time, one of the things has worked for me is that some of my role models or in that network of people or coaches are not necessarily people in executive roles. Can you believe how much insight you can get from a driver? Some of you who wants to work in your cars and you're busy typing, they have so much wisdom, and that is common wisdom to make you a human being. If you're like me, you come from the rural areas, I grew up there, my parents are now in a township. The women at the back during a funeral at night, the insights you get around challenges that women are facing when they come to the boardroom or insights about yourself are so remarkable. So where do you go around to grow and be a better person? Why are we always looking up to these few individuals rather than to this pyramid of this ecosystem down here that can shape who we are?
Guys, please. That is absolutely fantastic. I love that so much because I always idolized one of my aunts. There would be a funeral at home. We'll all be sitting there. Everybody sitting there. Everybody is thinking, is right, is healthy. And then the aunt arrives. When I We've been sitting here, nobody thought about doing it, right? So that's leadership. That's really natural. And then next thing, they never thought about washing the kettles. Nobody thought about painting the room, We're all sitting there sad, But that's leadership, right? That's what you're talking about. So that's impressive. Now, I'm going to open the microphone to you guys to ask questions that perhaps we might have missed. And perhaps you can share insights and also you can make comments, but please don't give us a speech. Oh, there's a question behind it.
Yeah, we've got a few roving mics.
Okay, few roving mics. So I'm going to chair the session. If I don't point at you, there's no personal vendetta. There's no grudge I'm holding against you personally. Just this morning. Okay, so I will go. Can we take 3 at a go? And then we will then go. So you start. 1, wait, and then 2.
Okay.
And then for democracy's sake, 3 at the back. Right? So you are number 3.
No
Okay.
problem.
Thank you so much. And, it's been fascinating and really...
Yeah, intro yourself, please.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm Shanila Mohammed. I sit on 2 boards, one HIVSA and the other one is Sariti. And my background is also media and women in leadership, etc., and human rights. My question for you, and thank you so much for this amazing insights that you've given us. One of the challenges, and I would love to hear your views on this, you talked about the issue of substance, women on boards and the necessity for us to be there and be there in a substantial, and play the role that we're there for. But on the other hand, there's this, we live in a very male-dominated society, a very patriarchal society. And even though it was said in confidence, that lipstick and handbag comment is a common comment, that comes along. And, women often feel that they have to either be a man or be helpless. It's one or the other. And the minute you are your authentic self, that comes with a lot of thorns, a lot of arrows, a lot of guns pointed in your direction. The question I have for you is, how do we, as women on boards, maintain our femininity? Because, that's who we are. We are women, and we are proud to be women. But I personally never want to be a man. But at the same time, that issue of substantial input, coming onto the board for the right reasons, and uplifting ourselves. Because I'm pretty sure in your life you have been at the receiving end of when you say something that is not liked. And you refer to Y and X, talking to, and that is strategy. So you've come up with strategy for survival on a board. What advice would you give women who are on boards, who don't want to, become a man, but at the same time...
Thank you, Shanila. Thank you. Close it. Good question. Thank you. Okay, number 2.
My name's Nikki Gaju. I'm an entrepreneur, a founder of a wealth management practice and a money coaching practice. I'm aspiring to be on a retirement board of trustees. Priscilla, it's been really insightful hearing you speak this morning. Thank you so much for sharing. As I heard you speak, there was something that you said that resonated with me. You mentioned that throughout your career path, you've been sponsored by different people, but mostly men. And this is something I can resonate with in my ex-corporate career and even out there as an entrepreneur. Is there any reason why women don't sponsor or support each other in leadership positions?
Thank you. She got that from me. That was my question. Yeah. Cut and paste, eh?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Milton Nkosi, and I've done a couple of things, and amongst them being a CEO of a public entity, and I still chair and deputy chair some public entity boards as well as private entity boards. But I love the statement you said earlier, but you didn't respond to about being a Kaizer Chiefs fan. and it being a matter of commitment and I think resilience and commitment, which I think pretty much summarizes oftentimes the role of being in a chair, of particularly a public sector role. It is just about commitment and resilience, and you go through a lot of fires there, and you come out scarred in many instances. But I wanted to just ask, at what point do winners know when to stop? Because as a woman, you go in there, God, so want to change the world, want to all these good things. But then, and the thought of you pulling back and just saying, this fight is just way too big for me, or it's costing me and my family and my sanity way too many things. But at the same time, when do you know when to stop, whilst you still have the confidence that you are not letting the sisterhood down? Thanks.
Thank you.
Wow, these are real issues that probably some are crucibles that I have had to experience myself, and I'll share some personal stories on those as well, because they're real. So if I go back to the issue of substance and how do we unlock ourselves and be able to broaden and maybe link it to the third point, because they are very linked. I think, first of all, one of the things I've learned earlier on, and it was from the many hours I spent instead of looking at performance, but encouraging me as a single mom of girls and having just lost a husband in a car accident and in a very demanding role at Eskom. Willem Kok, his first question was, are you okay? How's the family? Are you spending most of your time in the office? Before he asked me, do the numbers make sense or not? And one of the things he made me realize at that point was boundaries. So a lot of us talk about values, we talk about ethics, but you join an organization, you say we are aligned to our ethics. But really, when a conflict of your own value system and that of your company or the people you think you're leading with arises, how do you navigate it? What is the ultimate boundary when you say, this is not me? I need to exit. So I give an example. I am one of those winning, I want to break, and at times, as I said, it's seductive. You're thinking you're doing it for other women, but you're also doing it for yourself, let's be honest. We like these success stories. And I got to a stage where I joined one of the largest oil and gas company. I had the brilliant time of my life, but I was watching for the big role. And I said, this is the role I want to do. And probably also seductively thought, I can do it. What I didn't calculate on was the dynamics of what the board and others might be looking for. If you're going to disrupt and broaden participation, which I did from day one, my whole team, for the first time, the entity had a number of well-diversified teams, and I worked like that. I went into the organization deep and pulled the engineering capabilities that were there and ensure that we broadened that. But I underestimated that, and it cost me. It cost me my health, and because I continued to do it for others. But at some stage, I just said, this is it. When they say, hey, this is the new candidate, I said, thank you. And to God's mercy, I'm happy I left. And I can look back and say, what an amazing experience, the people I've worked with. And what they remember, they don't remember the exceptional performance that the company is still communicating that we delivered as a team, as one of the high-performing unit, but they remember the relationships. It's those few messages that I get that people I'm still coaching and mentoring, that when they're succeeding personally. So when I'm saying, what are your boundaries? Is what is the price you're willing to pay? And when you know that boundary ethically is crossed, when do you stop? So those are the two things that I'll say, always have those. And then get people that gives you clear comment. I remember sitting with Bonang Mohale, who I respect a lot, and during this transition, and he was helping me to navigate this complex space. And he said, sister, you need to be able to understand, look at the bigger picture. And I looked at the bigger picture and I said, I'm seduced and I want to get there, I'm seduced. But is it authentically me? are the small sacrifices I'm making to get there going to give people a different perception of who I am authentically? And then when I'm there, can I suddenly then take a reverse and say, now I'm in charge. This and this is going to change. We're different. You need to make that call for yourselves. And he allowed me to be able to navigate that space in that conversation and to be able to say, unfortunately, this I can't trade off. So hopefully, in a way, I gave you some of those answers. How do we sponsor each other? I mean, this for me, you always do with a smile. You know, at NTSA, we have a lot of highly experienced boys. I love them. Like yourself. They come to present, and then I ask them, where are the women? In a nice way. Next time, the room is full of women, and the women are not there with their lipsticks, but to talk. And then I realized, okay, they do have them. It's just that when they come to present, we don't see the talent. So I've given them all of them credits because there is a lot of talent pool. And I go to the women's session to understand, just for my own learning as well, what are some of the challenges that they're experiencing? What is the tone? What is the culture of the organization? Because when you're in boardroom, you don't understand that. But as a chair, dancing with them and talking to them, you get some insights of what is happening in the organization and that you can navigate in a smart way. But I always say that as boards, you know your role, but at the same time, the softer issues are equally important. Listening is important, observation is important, and throwing those small requests. Mr. X, please let me see your female talent next time you come through. Hey, they will find them.
But can I please press on, because here we are two on that one. Women don't really support each other all the time as they should, right? Can you speak to that sort of, devil wears Prada type of thing? And then I also want you to roll into it. When I was reading about you, is that you spoke about something very powerful, that not all the solutions, like you just mentioned now with the driver, of boardroom matters actually come from the boardroom itself. So you spoke about the importance of spirituality. So you need to be grounded in your spirituality to be able to overcome some of those challenges, right? So first, the question about women being their own worst enemies.
It is so true. And I think, first of all, I always say that the fewer we are, the more challenging it is. Goes back to your point. If you are different and you bring your true authenticity, because I always struggle to define women or men, because I find that my friends are different. I've got emotional friends who are men, emotional women friends who are not emotional. I mean, friends that are not necessarily feminine and have empathy, but they're different. So I get a lot out of my pool of friends. So what I always say is that, who are you? And what I found is most of the time, because the society has created celebrities in boardrooms and in companies, and they've made us so many few by design. And it becomes a cost to my career, a cost to my progress. And what do? I'm a human being. But what I also then found is when I look for, and hence I went back to say a lot of people, except for a few people like Mon Hlahlahla that guided me as well, my career was supported by men. It's because I then become smart to know which of the men I'm aligned to in terms of our values. Who do I go to cry, and I know if I've shed a tear, it will never get into the boardroom. We recently had a situation in my current role where I was feeling I needed to discharge and exhale. And I went and I phoned a man to help me in that, because I knew he understood the dynamics. So it's very important as women that if we really want to broaden this, we don't necessarily think that other women because they're battling their own battles. Some is not necessarily the battles, they just love the status of celebrity. And it's true. But who do you support? Who supports you? Who have similar values as you? How do you partner with them? And that's the way I do it, so that I get the confidence to challenge and to give input. But that's very, very important. And I just hope to all of us here, and also the women that are in this, that we will at some stage change ourselves. What is our purpose in life? Is it to leave more and more people that are better than me? Or to die and ask Milton to come and give an obituary and talk about me dying 1, 2, 3, 4, which you can't write on a tombstone? Those are personal choices. And I just hope that women can start being courageous to support one another. And in supporting one another, it doesn't mean you accept mediocre performance, but you challenge each other, you grow each other, you reach out. You asked another question.
Spirituality. Yeah. Amadlozi.
Yeah. I grew up in Methodist church, and I still go to Methodist. I still need to I'm attracted to that. Sabomme, red and white. Red and black, the jacket. My parents will love that. But on a lighter note is that I had a very anchor of spirituality at a very early stage with my grandmother. 5 o'clock in the morning, we wake up, we pray. So there are times when I don't have answers. And I just find that my conversation with God, whether it's anger, guidance, is powerful. And I anchored myself with finding that in the 4, I always say that I need 4 paradoxes to survive. One of them is my family, my beautiful girls and my parents, my sisters, and I love my family. I'm a very family orientated, and my extended families in Eastern Cape, Limpopo, etc. So I pull the crowds. But they make me who I am. My spiritual anchor, which is personal, and I navigate it in my own way. It's very important to make that time. And then my job, and then my friends, associates, etc. Without finding that alignment of those 4, I'm not a human being.
Right. Round 2 of questions. Okay, we start here with Delia to my right. We go to you. Oh, guys, I've got to go. Did you say when we met, you said you are Melissa? Meliswa. And then Mark is behind you. So I'm going to go to Mark. I'm going to be sexist and go for another man. But you'll come after. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And then noted, we're coming to you.
What a captivating conversation. I wish we could go on and on, but I'm very mindful that we are over time, actually. But allow me to thank you for affirming us as women, because as women, often you are told you are to Shanila's point, you are too, what's the word? Too emotional. You are too aggressive when you are trying to assert yourself. When you're being passionate, you are also labeled. So you are never just yourself. You can never just show up authentically as yourself. So thank you for affirming us, and also for confirming that we need to deliver results, though, so that the results can speak for themselves. The question I wanted to ask you centers around your role as chair. How do you create psychological safety in the boardroom?
Good day, everyone. I am Welile Dlamini. I'm actually an entrepreneur in an engineering space. I sit in an engineering company, Trasam, as a director there. So firstly, I must say I'm quite honored to be here. It's a space that I actually need currently in my career. So thank you for the insightful information that you've given us. My quick question is, based on on my experience in banks, is it important when you're selecting a board or a company that you're going to be directed to align your industry experience to the company that you are going to go next? For example, coming from engineering, can I easily go to a marketing company because you worry about value add that you add to that particular board? So yeah, is it really important that we align our industry experience to the type of board or the company, organization that you go to? Can I just throw in a quick one? We're going to be very brief. Doesn't it bother you to see the similar faces sitting and there's boards? Every time we see similar faces sitting in boards, and for me, it worries me. How do we, maybe it's such sessions really that we need as a country to change that narrative that we currently see in our country. Thank you.
Okay. Mark, behind you. Anita? Yeah.
Thank you. My name's Mark Kaplan. Amongst many, many things over many years, currently, my main involvement is as a co-founder with Delia of Chapter Zero Southern Africa, which is part of a significant global initiative. I've got an interesting question for Priscilla, but I just want to preempt it by saying, in my very lengthy business experience, it has been that women leadership is far more successful than men leadership in businesses. Simplistically, the differentiator is that women have a much higher level of humility and an absence of ego. And the disadvantage that men carry with them is called testosterone, which balances the humility, the absence of humility, with ego. And that, in essence, drives a lot of the behavioral issues. And of course, there's so many examples around the world. And I just want to mention, because I've heard him talk, Mohammed Yunus, Grameen Bank, who are the recipients of a Nobel Peace Prize for what they've done in micro-lending, and they only lend to women. For those of you who didn't know that, they don't lend to men. Now, the question that I put to you, Priscilla, is this. You see, in reality, there are two learning streams which require capacitation for board participation, especially by women. The one is obviously business and board competence. So it's all of this, the things you will learn in your studies and your business experience. The other one, which is the most underrated and in fact sits below the other one, but which is even more important, is behavioral leadership. Because it doesn't matter what our business competence is, behavior. And the example I want to use, when you become, there are two things in life you're never trained to do. One is parenthood and the other one is leadership. And in parenthood, you're taught, if you do go there, the thing you never want to do is to have a power struggle with your child. You've got to find another way through it. And that strategy is exactly the same one that women should take into boards. But my question to you, Priscilla, does that resonate?
Thank you. Elisa?
Good afternoon or morning, everyone. I'm Advocate Mukotedi. I run a Soft Skills Academy. Mine is really not a question as much as a reflection that I'd like to hear from you as an aspiring board person. What was your experience when your first board experience, and what soft skill can you give me that helped you navigate that first experience? Thank you.
Actually, now that we are really out of time, can you just come in now with, is it ready, your question? Let's just go for it, and then we close it, right? Because I think we're under pressure for time, yeah.
Firstly, thank you for your insights. I think it's been very, I think, helpful, especially for a young person coming up. My name is Baratamang Kamo, and I am the 2IC2 Group CEO at PPS and Deputy CEO. And I think you mentioned something about potential. And the key thing for me, especially being in a supporting role to executives at this point in time, is what have you identified as the cause or the things that ensure that people actually don't get developed? What is the result of that? And how do you actually break those barriers to ensure development to board level?
Hopefully I'll be able to cover a few. Let me try and be short. Psychological safety, Delia, thank you. For me, this is two aspects of it. One of the must-do as a board is to create psychological safety for your executive. That promotes transparency, openness, and being able to understand what do you discuss in the room and what do you decide outside of the room. And that's very important, which then implies that you have to have a relationship as a collective, but individually. And that's one of the biggest role of a chairman, is my ability to sit with the executive, the CEO, and give feedback in a constructive manner, but also to understand the experience of us and navigate how you manage that. So that's one key element that most companies don't necessarily get right, that balance. So how do you challenge, but at the same time, create that safety so that you can get transparent, timely, transparent information, because it's the key part of effective decision making. Then the psychological safety as a board, and I'm learning on this one, is that you are an individual, but you are a collective. We all have values. We've defined a purpose of the company, but we also come with our own values and the boundaries I've mentioned. How do you engage with the individuals to make sure that you strengthen the collective by leveraging their strength? In lots of companies and boards, we focus on people's weaknesses, what you should improve, rather than if I unleash your potential and your strength, how much more can I get out of you? And that is the tactic of an effective chair, because it gives confidence to others. Then you're able to open up. I always get feedback, and I speak last. Comments from others. How do we make sure that everyone has answered? There are certain people that I know are experts in that particular area. I also just invite them at times to hear their thoughts. Even if they reaffirm what has been said, it's also important. And that's a dynamic of how you continue to grow, to be able to get that silence, open up, but more importantly, an effective challenge and dialogue. But key, dialogue and be friends out of us. Make a decision and stand by it afterwards. So those are critical for me in the psychological safety, and it goes back to personal relationships in the room and outside of the bedroom. Industry experience. I've served on boards where I don't necessarily have an industry experience. I always think that when you look at profiles of really highly successful boards, they have technical capabilities. They've got business, and Mike earlier on spoke about the other elements of the behavioral element of it. So I look at our board, we have people who are professors at universities, but the insights around the social element or the technical elements that we might not necessarily embrace because we don't think they've worked in business is so value adding. So how do you end up with a board that has all the right competencies to be able to make you effective? And when you're going into a board, you must ask yourself, what is my value proposition? If it's to earn fees, then you must ask yourself, how am I going to accelerate my growth? If you can't, then step back. So it's all-encompassing. Don't limit yourself, because there'll be technical people, there'll be leadership, but know what you're bringing into the board for the company to succeed. Chapter 0, Mark, I like your comment. I'm going to take that. I can't say that as a woman, but I'm glad you said it. The men's egos, oh my God. That's why I have Mark, and I have X and Y, and Mark very well. So it will always be you together with another man that will help us solve the problems of the world, and then it's Donald Trump. So, but the ability to understand individually what drives your colleagues on a board is that part. What do you associate with and what you don't associate with? It's very important. So I do understand and agree with you that the behavioral leadership is critical, but I don't think as companies we're paying a lot of attention to. I've been on board selections where we said we want strategic affinity, congruency, conformity. those things are important, but they should not be construed as you think the same, you act the same, because at times that's what it is. Then you end up with common thinking, which is not helpful for both. So how do we make sure that we put more emphasis on that's going to be important? I've answered the issue of soft skill and experience around how do you balance that, I think, in terms of bringing in the different skill set. One of the things why I believe we are struggling as human beings and not necessarily women and men is we are human creatures of positiveness. We get our energy from being affirmed. When do you create space for constructive feedback? I must say I don't like feedback where someone comes and alleges and attacks me. But I like feedback where someone said, when you did this, you made me feel like that. But when you said you behave this way, then I take tension into that. And good leaders are people who are able to give you that feedback but not break you. So how do you associate yourself with that? But also, where do you get people who just love you for who you are? Like my dad. If I come here and I feel like, oh, I'm going to be in front of Milton, I phone Papa. Trust me, tells me, my baby, you are beautiful, capable, then I'm fine. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Wasn't that beautiful? Now, we do need to close it, right? But who has like a burning thing? They didn't pick me. I need to say this. If I don't say this, I'm going to die.
We have
anybody here? No one at the back. Okay.
We have a burning question over there.
Burning question. Okay. So you, and who's more burning between the two of you? Okay. Iwe. My favorite city, Lusaka. So peaceful, lovely. Okay, so we are 1, 2, and 3, right? Yeah. Nepotism. Yeah. Oh, it's gonna bring us a bit of Trump. Okay, let's go. 1, 2, 3, and then it's the end. Okay.
Testing. I think it's working. Good morning, all the beautiful ladies and men in the room. I'm Natasha Kami. I'm the founder and the executive chair of Arenkwe Holdings. So we are governance and risk and compliance entity. I've subsequently joined corporate for 7 years in between. But for many of the reasons that has been mentioned by all of us and Priscilla, I've decided to go back and carry on my dream. So professionally, I'm a admitted chartered secretary. And if you know in the room, you would have a company secretary or you'll have a board secretary in the room as directors. And we've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I've got a declaration as well. I don't think we conflicted, but I think we're just declaring. I have worked with Priscilla, Montla Shanshla, Cindy Zolwa, 3 of the most amazing but very different women. The one was my CFO, the one was my CEO, and the one was my chairman. So just imagine me in between all of this dynamism every single morning. And they were integral to me landing my first executive position as a group company secretary at the age of 27. And I will always salute them. On that point, I want to just give some pointers on when you identify pain points on the board, whether it be soft, whether it be hard, whether it be you don't understand the technical document. Your company secretary is your go-to person. Your company secretary is under by law supposed to keep everything confidential. That's your sounding board. So even if you don't understand something, they can quickly arrange a management pre-meeting for you. It is standard practice now where I would always do a chairman pre-meeting. But if you had a director and you need some sort of guidance or you don't understand, you have questions that maybe you don't feel comfortable asking in front of your peers, we can help you in that space. And then just a question to I love your comment around board celebrities, board members, celebrities. There's a lot of them out there. They pop up all the time.
Okay.
And just my last
You've
question.
got 5 seconds. Okay.
Yes, my last question. Well, my question to Priscilla. How did you find moving between sectors? And did you see there was a material change in the way women are accepted in certain industries? Was there more of an appetite in other industries?
Good. We get it. Thank you so much. Brilliant question. Let's go to Zambia.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and greetings from sunny Lusaka, Zambia. My name is Charity Lumpa. I am a professional non-executive director. In my career, I've been a 3-time CEO, and I chaired the biggest bank in Zambia, bringing it from the bottom top 10 of the banks to number 1 in my tenure. Yeah, and I've also set up a greenfield bank from scratch to today. It's still running as EcoBank Zambia. So right now I'm the outgoing vice chair for a board in the Netherlands, and I sit on boards locally, regionally, and internationally. I want to affirm what you have said, Priscilla, and thank you so much for such an exciting topic. And one of the things I want to stress on is when you said about being a woman board leader. And I want to add to that by saying by being an effective and professional board member, as a woman, you are really advancing the cause of women. You know, we shouldn't go in there just with handbags and lipsticks. But really, those are essential. But we should go there with the view that being a board member is about making decisions in the best interest of the organization. Whether you have handbags, whether you have what they call it, swag, what they call it, yeah, all of those things. It's here that matters when you go into the
Okay, 10 seconds, 10 seconds.
My question is, have you ever encountered sponsors who want to make you feel less than the full potential that you carry? And how have you dealt with it, especially when you talk about role models?
Thank you, thank you. Your question is 15 seconds and no more.
Good afternoon. Good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Clara Lumpa. I am an entrepreneur. My doctorate is in healthcare administration. I've lived in the U.S. since 1996. I'm trying to make my way back to Zambia. As somebody who's worked abroad, what advice would you give to me? Where do I start from?
Brilliant. So yesterday I chaired a conversation with a board in the UK. And I was doing State of the Nation for South Africa. And one of the things I told them on the positives is that there's a huge, quiet influx of people coming from Europe and America. We always read about brain drain when they leave. But when they come, there's no headline, okay? But if you look at the property prices in Cape Town, they are largely driven by international people, okay? So you'll be most welcome back on the continent, and I'm sure Priscilla will give you just the right advice. Priscilla, you've got 2 minutes.
Well, I don't have answers for everything, but hopefully you brought Agoa home with you. So welcome back. I think, Natasha, you've said it well in terms of how dynamic could be. And one of my career highlights was AXA, because they were women that we unleash our best, but also our own growth as we're moving forward in terms of that. And it was one of my best learning space as such, where I was also allowed to make mistakes and go through crucibles that have defined who I am today. So I always say that, what's your purpose? And not that what you write on a piece of paper so that people believe in that. For me, I would say issues of governance and eliminating group thinking, and hopefully no board member can feel they can ask questions in a boardroom. They might want to learn, like I always say that, oh my God, we've got this exceptional talent that I want to go and understand what are they talking about if they're saying 1, 2, 3, 4. That's important for learning. But issues of discussion must always be discussed openly, and there's no stupid questions and comments, because otherwise then it means you don't have the right people around the table. And I do understand that the relationship with the company secretary is very important. One of the things we haven't discussed, hopefully it will be covered later on, is feedback for the board, the individuals, from the executive team, but for ourselves as well. It's something that is also very critical because it also highlights where the areas of bringing all the voices in the room comes from. On the second point, I do believe that issues of deliberate and intentional leadership are important. The best company I've worked for that the CEO was clear around issues of diversity and inclusion in everything we do was BP. Bob Dudley lived that. And hence, we could go and work everywhere in the world and be successful. And it was not only women, it was the youth. We spend a lot of time today talking about women. Imagine most of us with our experiences, we're having this boundaries challenges, the headwinds. What about the young males and females that are coming through? How do we monitor, how do we mentor, how do we sponsor them? And I found that BP had a very broad approach of meaningful contribution, not compliance contribution. And that was a culture that got embedded in all of us. So if you don't subscribe to that, you could not be part of that DNA. Sponsorships, I really believe we need them. I've had a lot of them, but I never had bad sponsors, so I can't answer that because I choose well, or I don't choose you and that's why I said learning. One of the things that I learned earlier on through Wendy Lucas Bull was how often do you sit down and write a letter to yourself? Personal. And if my kids had to give an eulogy, will they look for things to say so that the funeral looks respectful? Or they'll authentically connect and speak without lots of Shakespeare quotes? So that's that letter that you're saying, how should Milton, after I leave NTSA in 3 years, assess and affirm my contribution? Cultural fit is equally important, and I'll summarize and say that the choices we make define the experiences we get. Boundaries are important. Be willing to exit if your crucibles are not making you grow, but are changing who you are. And I thank you.
On that wonderful note, we need to close. So thank you so much. Judith, back to you.
Yes, I'm taking the mic. Priscilla, I do not even know how to thank you, but I get comfort from knowing that we've got you on camera. So with your permission, we will definitely film. I mean, we've filmed this. We will obviously curate it and share it because I want to watch it 5, 6, 7 times. We really appreciate it. And sorry we went over time. I know you've got other commitments. So we're going to break for 30 minutes for lunch, and then we come back straight up at 12 p.m. Elias, we also had to ask him to accommodate us because we're running half an hour behind. So let's be on time. Let's get back here straight at 12:30 so we can continue the program. At 12, so we can continue the program. Thank you so much.